Here we go.
Okay, so this is the Hase Bari 8171 sold through Hearthstone. We're going to do an initial break-in and a little tutorial on how to operate the stove. The first thing you want to do when you're operating stoves is make sure that the ash grate is open, the air is open, and the bypass damper is open. So down here, you'll open this up here. You can open up the door. You'll see this is the air grate control. You want to make sure that this lever here is pulled out. So this will allow you to shake the ash in the firebox down into the ash pan later when you remove your ash. This is the air control. Make sure this is fully pulled out. Okay, that's the air control open. Later, when the stove is burning hotter, you'll be pushing the air in to reduce the flame and to make it burn secondary air as opposed to primary air. You'll get a more efficient burn when you do that. But we're going to start with that out. The other thing is the bypass damper. So you'll notice over here you have the bypass damper as well as the catalytic probe. When it is up like this, the bypass damper is open. When it's like that, it's closed. Now, you'll leave it in the open position upon startup. There is a little meter here. So when this gets into the gray where it says catalyst active, that's when you're going to close your damper like this to engage the catalyst, okay? So that's that part, okay? Next thing we're going to do is with a stove that has all chimneys draft a little differently. So if you have a lot of exterior chimney, it may draft more slowly. If you have a lot of bends in the stove, this stove is on there's a lot of exterior chimney on this. There's one 90-degree elbow going up and in. And it's also a warm day today. It's about 60 degrees, so the draft's not going to be as strong. So I'm just going to prime the flue by lighting a little paper in here. This is kind of like starting a siphon with water. Once the siphon begins, then it will self-draft itself. Now notice here I'm not completely closing the door here. I'm letting a little bit of air come in the side of the stove here. You can see the smoke is pulling up into the chimney. It's not coming out into the room right now. All I'm trying to do right now is put a little bit of heat in the flue to establish a warm draft. So I'm just gonna let that burn by itself, get the paper going nicely, then close the door. And I'm just gonna let this burn itself out. If it looks like I'm straggling a little bit, just open up the air again a little bit, the door, and let it have a little, you see a little bit coming out right there, so we'll close the door. So this is just gonna help establish the draft.
Is that something we do every time we start the stove?
Depends on the venting system. You may find that it's not necessary at all. You may find that you have to do it more. You may have to do this a couple times if you have poor draft. These stoves here, this has a, just the way these stoves draft, they're not the fastest drafting stoves. You may have to do it more than once, but it looks like it's going pretty well. You can see the smoke coming down over the glass right now. That's a good thing because that's actually what we call the flame wash. So once this stove gets going really well, it's going to pull hot gases, hot heat over the glass like that and help burn off creosote. In general, if you have black creosote on your glass, the way to remedy that is give it more air because the flame wash is associated with the primary air. When the primary air down here is fully pulled out, you get more flame wash, and when it's pushed in, you get less. If you wake up in the morning and there's a bunch of black creosote, that probably should tell you that next time don't close the air quite as much as you did the time before. But we're getting some nice little heat here. This is burning nicely, so we're establishing a nice little draft here. And we'll just wait for that to go out, and then we'll just pause now, and we'll come back to it in a second.
Just hit the...
Yeah, just... Okay, so we've just sent some heat up the flue to prime it a little bit. Now we're going to build it. Now you'll want to have some sort of kindling. The kindling that I recommend is fat wood. We sell it at the shop, but you can buy it at other places as well. It's basically a very resinous wood. You'll need your cordwood. Make sure your cordwood is nice and dry. You can pick up kiln dried cordwood at supermarkets like Hannaford. You can also get it delivered to you. If you're buying seasons green wood, make sure to age it 1 to 2 years to dry it out. So to start the fire, what I'm going to recommend with this is that you lay your wood vertically as much as possible. That might be too long, that one. I'm going to get one in and lean it up against the back of the stove. That way, when it starts to burn, it falls back against the fire back and not onto your glass. I'm going to try to get at least 2 pieces in there. And I'm going to put them nice, kind of close together like that, because in this groove right here is where I'm going to put the fat wood. And I'm going to take 2 pieces of right there in the fat wood so that when it burns, it's really touching the firewood. And then if I can get another piece on top of that to kind of close it off, that's good. But if you can't, then you can't. That one looks like it's not going to quite good. The fat wood's going to need a little bit of help to get going itself. So what we can do is put a little bit of paper behind the logs and down on the bottom of the logs like that. This one. If you have birch is a wonderful kindling, birch bark. You just tear that off a piece of birch if you have that. Squeeze those together like that. Put your pieces of fat wood there. Put a little bit of paper underneath the fat wood to help get that going. And I'm really trying to kind of squeeze those together so that when they burn, they touch that fat wood off. Where'd my matches go? There we go. Hide that paper, and again, just gonna crack the door to help it go. Just blowing on the paper like that will help get it going. Give it one more blow. And it's still going to leave it a little bit cracked. You can see the fat wood is starting to take off now. Now at this point, it's going to take probably 20 to 30 minutes for the fire to really get going. Once the fat wood is burning nicely and you can see that it's drawing, notice there's no smoke coming out of the side right now because we have a good draft. You can close the door if it feels like it's stalling out, like the fire's stalling out. You might want to crack it again, but as long as it's going well enough, remember I've got the air control wide open down here. Air control's wide out and the bypass damper's open. And that's just gonna burn like that. We'll come back in about 30 minutes and check the catalytic probe. During the break-in period, this is the first fire, during the break-in period, you're going to see smoke burning off of the stove in the paint. That's as the paint is going to burn off. You're going to cure the stove. It's going to smell like burning paint because it is burning paint. So you want to make sure to have your windows open and your house nice and ventilated when breaking in the stoves. And it's going to do that probably the first 1 to 2 times that you when you burn the stove. And we'll just come back to it later. Okay, so the fire's been going now for about 10 or 15 minutes. We've got a nice warm fire. If you come over here and look at the probe is now almost in the gray. So in a couple more minutes, when that needle's in the gray, it'll be primed to engage the catalyst. We're just gonna leave it for a second. Right now I'm gonna show you how to operate the air. So when we close the primary air down here, we are giving the stove less primary air, but it will revert to burning secondary air. So it'll start to bring air in up at the top of the flame. So when you close this in, you'll get both primary and a secondary urn. Now, if you look up here, watch what happens when I close the air off. You're going to see a slower, more lazy flame, and you're going to see kind of like storm clouds almost burning here. It will kind of go like that, and that's a secondary burn. Now, right now, the stove, if you just left the stove to burn like this, you'd still get a nice high efficiency. You don't even necessarily need to burn the catalyst, engage the catalyst, although you're supposed to. But before I engage the catalyst, what I like to do is leave the primary air wide open. So keep the air open first. Then we'll come over here and engage the catalyst, which is ready now. So we'll just turn this counterclockwise to the closed position. And now the catalyst is engaged. So at this point, the flames are passing through the catalyst. The catalyst is like a block with a bunch of holes in it. So what I like to do is let the flames go through the catalyst for 2 or 3 minutes. Once the catalyst is active, just to let the catalyst sort of acclimate to the flames going through it and to start burning those flames. And then I start turning the air down. So right now, for example, what I might do is if this is fully open, if that's fully closed, I might do a quarter push in, let it burn, see how it does. Stoves tend to burn in their most efficient rate when the air is at 50%. Not fully closed, not fully open, but at 50%. So what we'll do here is find sort of the middle spot. We'll put it right at middle for now. Now, you can play around with it. Once it's going like this, you can turn the air all the way down, see how it burns. The flame pattern will be different depending on how much air you give it down here. So you can kind of play with that to see what kind of flame picture you like, as well as to see how long the stove will burn. Just keep in mind that if you do see any creosoting on the glass, usually the best way to do that, to mitigate that, will be to give it more air, or once it's going, to give it, to close it a quarter or halfway. And that's about it. The stove's gonna burn now for about 3 or 4 hours. It's gonna cure itself. Probably gonna start seeing some smoke burning off the paint and the stove at some point here, although it hasn't started yet. And that's it.
Okay.